of course, the big story in America and elsewhere, in many ways, has been the plan to impeach Trump. Now, people will know I'm no supporter of Trump, and I'm no supporter of his opponents either, in terms of the George Soros hijacked Democratic Party, which has an agenda to, in effect, make America a Marxist state. So there's your choice, America, the next election. Do you want a Trump presidency, part two, a president who's owned by Israel and owned by the neocon cabal that answers to Israel? Or do you want the Soros hijacked Democratic Party that's going to turn America into a Marxist state? And I'm not overstating that at all, in the least, when you see the policies that are being put forward now, not least through the current favorite to be Trump's opponent in the next presidential election, Elizabeth Warren. And we've had a development just in the last few hours, just before I'm recording this, in which Adam Schiff, who is the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, which is a bit of a misnomer, really. To have Adam Schiff in charge of an intelligence committee is really a completely inappropriate role for him, given that he has so little. Because he came out in response to the claims that Trump was trying to get the leader of Ukraine to investigate a potential opponent in the next presidential election, but I would say not really, Joe Biden, over the fact that his son was on the board of an energy company in Ukraine that was being investigated by the prosecutor. And in his own words, on tape, Joe Biden said that he told the then leadership of Ukraine to fire the prosecutor, or else there would be consequences, and the prosecutor was fired. Because Joe Biden has an enormous ego, which means that he has enormous insecurity. That's what enormous egos are there to hide, not just from others, but from themselves. He felt it necessary to tell the story of how he basically ordered the Ukraine government to sack this prosecutor. He told that, boasting on tape, and thus it's come back to haunt him, as many of his boasts over the years have. Anyway, Schiff then comes out, this chair of the House Intelligence Committee, and then starts reeling off his version of the conversation, which was published, or a summary of it was published by the White House. And he reads it as if it's real. This is actually what was said. But he made it all up. It was an extraordinary performance, and should have brought an end to his role in the Intelligence Committee. But of course, the House is Democrat controlled, so that was not going to happen. But now it's come out in the last few hours, 12 hours, a bit more maybe, that the so-called whistleblower who made this conversation between the leader of Ukraine and Donald Trump public initially, and told a story about what was said that is not supported by the transcript or the summary. He works for the CIA. Of course, the CIA is a law unto itself, and it's part of this permanent government. Some people call it the deep state, but the deep state is only part of the permanent government. But it's part of this permanent government, the CIA, which is always there, whichever president comes in, and just carries on running the same agenda. It turns out now, despite the fact that Schiff denied this in a television interview recently, very recently, that the whistleblower was in contact with Schiff's office, a Democrat that was one of the leading voices, and as we know now, with the benefit of what's come out or not come out, lied, this guy Schiff, lied and lied about Russian interference in the last presidential election, in cohorts with the CIA that was all part of that Russiagate hoax as well. Now we hear that this CIA operative, quote, whistleblower, was in touch with this guy Schiff, who has been desperate to unseat Trump since the last election and wanted impeachment over Russiagate. Before he made his whistleblowing claims, which turned out to be misleading, public. So it's obviously a scam. It was obviously a scam from the start. And the idea, if you put all this together, is that the death cult controls the Democrats and the death cult controls the Trump administration, and they're playing one off against each other. They're keeping constant pressure on Trump, so that he's constantly in a state of defending himself, and constantly, if you like, on the back foot, so that they can use him for to introduce things that they want, and by putting him on the back foot, they can suppress things that he may want, but the agenda of the death cult doesn't want. So you keep them in line by constantly creating these points of pressure to undermine them. And another thing, adding to the blatancy of the scam of what's going on, is that the law, I think it was about 2 weeks before this whistleblower made public what he claimed the phone call said, the law was changed, or the regulation was changed, the process was changed, whereby for the first time a whistleblower could take on that status despite not having personally witnessed what he or she is claiming happened. Because this whistleblower does not claim to have heard the conversation between the Ukrainian leader and Trump. He claims that people who did hear it told him. Now, about 2 weeks before this came to light, that would not have been possible. The whistleblower's allegations would not have been followed through, because you couldn't make those claims if you hadn't and have them investigated if you hadn't actually witnessed what you claim happened. 2 weeks before, they changed the rule. 2 weeks later, he comes out. So it's all a scam. And I say that as someone who doesn't support Trump, doesn't support any political party or political leader. But you see, what's lost is if we're going to truly have a free and open, fair and just society, then we must put personalities aside and what we think of them, and let justice, fairness, and truth be the motivation and the guide. So whether you like Trump or whether you absolutely can't stand him is irrelevant to the fact that the guy, like anyone else, deserves fairness. And if something's going on that's scamming someone I don't actually support, then it still needs to be made public. But what happens, and exposed, what happens, however, is when you start saying this Russiagate targeting of Trump was a hoax, which I said from the start in 2016 and has now been accepted it was a hoax. And this situation now, in terms of the Ukraine phone call, when you say actually this is a scam, many people will say, oh, how can you do that? You're a Trump supporter. No, I'm a supporter of fairness and justice for everybody. But that is being lost in what has become an extraordinarily polarized, not only American society, but increasingly a global one. And just to finish on this point about the scam, here's another story. George Soros funded group linked to Democrat orchestrated White House whistleblower Trump complaint. So organization, or an organization which is connected to this allegation, is funded by the man who seems to fund everything in the progressive movement, i.e. fake liberal movement, George Soros. Story says here, sections of the whistleblower complaint alleging President Trump pressured Ukraine's president for political advantage relied on a self-described investigative journalism organization funded by billionaire activist George Soros. They call him a left-wing activist. I mean, George Soros is a left-wing activist. A man who says, I don't consider the social consequences of what I do. I'm just there to make money. He's a left-wing activist. Are you having a laugh? It's a joke. But because he hands out the wads to these progressive organizations, they won't say a word against him. Because it's not about fairness, justice, and exposing the manipulation of the system. It's about their agenda. You don't expose the manipulation of the system when that manipulation means wads of cash are going to be handed out to you. The whole thing's a scam. And I'm not, like I say, defending Trump. Sure, he does some really, really well beyond the line things. Nature of the man. But we have to take everything on the basis of fairness, justice, truth. Surely. And not just say, let's crush this man because we don't like him. Crazy. Childish. Well, sorry kids. I'm insulting you by putting you in the same sentence as these people.